they come out clean.
Birds and Buckets, man. We back at it,
Yeah.
man. This is the second to last regular season episode. I believe so. This might be the last regular season episode. I don't know what day exactly.
Probably. Oh, no. Well, the plan starts like May 18th.
The next Saturday is the 15th. So 15th, 16th, 17th. Okay, so this is the second to last episode of the regular season. Welcome, guys. My name is Rashad Milligan. I've been I've been covering the Hawks for a couple of years now. Covered this is my sixth season covering the NBA. And to the left of me, or wherever you guys see it on your screen, is my co-host Malik Brown. And Malik, you can introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm Malik Brown. I've been in Atlanta for 23 years.
23?
Great feeling. Yeah, I'm 23, so born and raised here. Been covering the Hawks. Been looking at the Hawks maybe since 2011, 2010. Not as long as you guys, but hey man, I'm here. I'm part of the Hawks family.
Gotcha. Thank you, Malik. And then our guest, this is our guest's third time coming on the show, is Reg. Reg, let the people know about you.
As you guys know, I'm Reggie Mickles. I've been a Hawk fan for about around the same, as long as Malik's been alive. So so I've been a Hawk fan for about 22, 23 years. And I love Atlanta. I love Atlanta sports, and let's get to it.
All right. Sounds good. There was a couple, when you said you loved Atlanta sports, I had a couple of other questions for you. Since we got time, second to last of the regular season, we're going to get into Hawk stuff later, folks. So don't worry about it. Kyle Pitts, did you like the pick or not?
I'm okay with it, but I would have preferred them to take a quarterback. But I understand, if Kyle Pitts is this generational tight end / wide receiver / hybrid, whatever you want to call him, if he's what everyone says that he is, then I'm okay with it. And when it comes to Matt Ryan, on one hand, I do believe the Falcons, considering his age, I do believe the Falcons would have been best served to take a quarterback and have him grown behind Matt Ryan. But on the other hand, Matt Ryan being 36 isn't like Matt Ryan being 39. So I do believe Matt Ryan, under a creative offensive-minded coach, I think he's capable of springing together, a good 3 to 4 years. So while I would prefer them to take a quarterback like Justin Fields, I'm okay with them taking Kyle Pitts. It's taking him is justifiable if he's what everyone says he is.
I guess now headed into the topic that everybody has been waiting for. Let's get into it. Where do you want to start? Should we start with Dre or should we start with Chris Dunn?
Let's do Dre. I think that's real big.
All right, Dre. As you guys have if you guys haven't heard, DeAndre Hunter, just to give you a little background, he's expected to come back as early as Monday night when this episode comes out. Today, which is Saturday when we're recording this, a few minutes ago, Nate McMillan said that he participated in 5-on-5s in practice, and he's looking pretty good. He's looking kind of good, but at best on Monday, his status will be a game time decision based off of how he performs on Sunday and Monday and 5-on-5 or whatever, and pregame workouts and stuff. So DeAndre Hunter is on the verge of being back. Cam Reddish, we still don't know. But that's one of the wings that everybody's been waiting for. One of the two wings that everybody's been waiting for to come back. As you guys saw this past week, if you guys haven't seen, the Hawks got abused by the Indiana Pacers on the wing, scoring and couldn't stop them for a late. The offense was pretty good. Offense was pretty good as always. The shot was struggling to fall. but, they hit enough shots to stay in the game and then got back in the game thanks to Trae Young in the fourth quarter. But, fell short because they just couldn't get a stop. Karis LeVert was abusing them. So, those two guys are guys that everybody kind of in the Hawks fan base has been looking forward to come back. And entering the last week of the regular season now, it's looking like one of those guys is going to come back. So, fellas, your thoughts on DeAndre Hunter being back?
I guess I'll start. Having him back is huge. I mean, I can't say enough about DeAndre Hunter. Like, having him back is very critical for this team because they miss his two-way ability defensively, his ability to guard 1 through 4. Surely we could have used him against Indiana when Karis LeVert and Sabonis was cooking us. So, like, having him back having his presence back defensively is huge, and offensively, just his ability to play the 3 and the 4, he can shoot the 3 ball. He's improved his mid-range game. He can, get to the rim. If he's back and healthy, it's huge. It's huge for the Hawks.
Yeah, I think it's big too, but I don't know if 4 games is enough to get somebody back to where he was at the beginning of the season. Because honestly, he's been the most consistent in my eyes, but it seemed like kind of towards the time where he had got hurt, maybe a couple games before that, that's when he really was like showing out. I remember the Bucks game was kind of like that game where people was like, oh shoot, like this dude is like legit. So I do think it's big. He's probably the best defensive wing they have. Well, besides him and besides Cam, but those two, you're gonna need those type of like defensive wings in the playoffs, especially if you play a team like the Celtics who have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But other than that, like it's big. I hope that he does come back. I don't know if it'll be 100%, but if it's 85, 90, I think that's pretty good. And even when he came back for those 3 games on that West Coast trip, he had an impact. I know he was doing pretty good on Kawhi when they played the Clippers. I can't remember the other games he played, but that game specifically, I remember he did a pretty good job on Kawhi when he was out there. But I think it's going to be big.
I think he was rushed back on that West Coast trip because, like, although he was playing all right, he was on minutes restriction and he wasn't playing as well as he was. I know that's an unfair comparison because he was playing like at an all-star level at the beginning of the season. But, I think it felt like he was kind of rushed because, he goes out there for a couple games, doesn't look as good as he did at the begining of the year, and then gets hurt again. Yeah. So it's like, and now he's been out for what feels like 2 months.
2 months,
3 months. If you want to say February, but it was 2 months, March. But 2 months now. So like you said, Malik, is 4 games enough when last time he came back and, felt kind of rushed, or we didn't know if it was rushed or not, but we saw his play wasn't the same. And then, after a couple games, he goes out again forever. So it's like, is this it? You definitely – what McMillan was saying, at best, he'll be a game time decision on Monday. You kind of almost hope that he doesn't play on Monday, because it's kind of like if that's what it's going to take. Like, I don't want your best to be a game time you might be able to go. Like, I want it to be hands down you'll be able to go. Like, I know NBA players are always hurt, and there's a difference between injured and hurt. That's something that we hear every year, but you don't want to rush something like that when you've already seen the results of rushing it before earlier in the season. And
to be honest, I feel like the handling of DeAndre Hunter's injury has been awkward. Like, anyone who's following me on Twitter, like, I've kind of voiced my thoughts on it. Travis Lane going on radio, giving us kind of like this false hope that he could be back on this certain day, or Hunter could be back on this certain day, and then he doesn't come back. And it just leaves us fans kind of confused as far as like what's really going on with DeAndre Hunter. So, and like with like what Malik said, like I am kind of skeptical as far as like how long it'll take for DeAndre Hunter to find himself, because I don't think 4 games for DeAndre is quite enough for him to find his groove. Like, he's going to be rusty. He's going to have, I anticipate him having maybe a game where he looks good and then a game where he doesn't look quite as good. So, like, it's going to take a lot of time for him. It's going to take, I would say, maybe like 8 to 10 games maybe for him to find his groove. And, like, I'm interested to see how, like, all of that shapes itself out with DeAndre.
So I want to know, so if he just say he plays these 4 games and he just doesn't look playable, I mean, of course his defense is always going to be there, but offensively, right, what if he just can't give you what he's been giving you? When the playoffs start, what do you do with him? Do you just can him, bench him, or do you still try to implement him as much as you can and see if he can get the rust off during the playoffs? Like, do you really sacrifice that? Do you really like try to find a player's groove during the playoffs, or do you just, if he just doesn't have it these last 4 games, you just can him?
Well, here's what I'll say about when he did those 2 games that he came back from when they played. I actually thought in the Clipper game, I thought DeAndre looked pretty good in that game. Like, I didn't think he looked bad. I thought he was moving around fine. But then the following game against the Kings, that's where I noticed that he really struggled. Like, he couldn't find a shot. I didn't think he was moving that great. So I suspect that when he does come back, because he's been out for so long, that, and I would probably suspect that maybe the team has been hiding, kind of been waiting for him to find the right time for him to come back. So I would probably anticipate that he'll have a game where he looks pretty good, and then maybe another game where he doesn't look as good. And I think from there, I think Nate McMillan, I think the one thing I like about Nate is he kind of has like a feel for things. So I think with DeAndre, you'll know whether he's right. If he's right, then you play him maybe his 15 to 20 minutes. If you know that he's not right, then maybe you play him minimal minutes, if barely. I think when he starts playing, you'll know whether he's right or not, and you just go on from there.
I have a follow-up off of that. So, kind of leading into the other topic that I wanted to talk about from the recent news is Chris Dunn. So, that Pacers game, which I just pulled up,
right.
31 points, 31 from LeVert, and then 30 from Sabonis, as you mentioned earlier. 61 points from those 2 guys. And, Chris Dunn is sitting. He's still sitting. You say,
right,
Nate has a feel for things, and Chris Dunn is kind of known as your best perimeter defender available on the roster at that time. I know Snell is also known as a 3-and-D guy coming in, but with Hunter and Reddish out, it's kind of like Chris Dunn. That's the reason why you guys signed him to all this money. How did you feel about Chris Dunn not getting any burn in Indiana?
I was a little surprised, but I think I don't know if I talked about this on the last episode with you guys, but when Chris Dunn was coming back, I was kind of skeptical as far as like how he would really fit, because you already had Lou Williams, you have Trae Young. Do you want to play 3 small guards together? Because he's 6'4". So I think, like, if Chris Dunn, like, if you go by the rotation, like, let's say our starting 5 is Clint Capella, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Bogey, Trae Young, and then your bench, that Kevin Huerter is going to get minutes, Gallinari is going to get minutes, and Lou Williams is going to get minutes. So if you play DeAndre, I mean, not DeAndre, but Dunn, like, there's a chance that maybe do you want to play him and subtract Lou's minutes? Because they're both kind of like the same mode of guards. So I think over time, I think it'll go by like matchup based, situational based. And that, if you need scoring, Lou Williams is going to play. And if you need defense, or if you're playing against a defensive guard or a key guard that's cooking you, maybe Chris Dunn will play. I think with Nate McMillan, I think he's trying to, because Chris Dunn hasn't been around the team practicing as much as the other guys have had, I think he's still trying to like get a feel for when to play Chris Dunn. And I think he's still trying to figure things out with him.
I think I know Nate last week he was talking. I know they asked him about like his rotations or whatnot, and that's when he brought up the Chris Dunn news. And he was basically saying like he would go 9 or 9.5 players deep into the rotation. So when you were saying that, I know you said Herder, Gallo, and you said Lou.
Lou.
Yeah. So I think that 9th player would possibly be. It has to be Snell. I don't know if did you say Hunter at the 3 or starting, or did you?
I had him starting.
Okay, you said Snell. Oh, you said Hunter, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Snell would be that 9th person. And in the half would probably be Solo. And it would honestly be between Solo and Dunn for me. But the fact that Solo's played the whole season and Solo can actually hit a 3, he actually has some type of offensive game. Like when Chris Dunn was out there in the games, the couple games he's played, he hasn't really done anything offensively. Like he looks rusty. You can say that he looks rusty, but defensively you see his presence and you see like what he can do on that side of the ball. But Solo, he can give you defense. He can't give you maybe Chris Dunn defense, but he's solid enough. But offensively, he can shoot the 3. And that's what the Hawks really have been doing good as well. So I don't see where Dunn possibly fits in, because I honestly thought he could have played any game this week. They played against Dame. They played against Devin Booker and Chris Paul, and then they played against LeVert, who was cooking them. He could have been good in any of those situations, but he just didn't come out. He didn't come out on the floor. They had Snell guarding Dame, I think, and they had Herder guarding LeVert, and I can't remember who was on Devin Booker. It's probably Snell, but that's just how it is.
Solo.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah. Solo and Snell, by the way, 25 combined minutes at Indiana, 0 points between those two.
Cardio.
and look, I'll say this about Solomon Hill. I'm not like, he frustrates me sometimes when it comes to him just like making shots, because he gets open looks and he doesn't hit them all the time. But the one thing that I will say about him is, and I think this is one thing that Nate McMillan appreciates about him, is when he's on the floor on defense, like you can hear his voice even through the TV screen. Like he talks on defense. And I think that's something that Nate McMillan values from his players, especially for a guy like him being a veteran leader. And I just, I've had my frustrations with Solomon Hill at times this year, but I just think like there's a reason why he plays the amount of minutes that he plays sometimes. And I just think it's just because of that voice and being a presence on the floor, vocally. And I just think that's just something that he values, and he hustles. Like he tries. Now he doesn't do everything perfect, but like you just see the effort that he puts out on the floor. And it's just like, okay, that's why he plays his 15 to 20 minutes a game. And like Nate McMillan's comfortable with him, as compared to Dunn, where he's just been out and hurt, and it's just like we're this late in the year, and it's just like, we just haven't had the time to see Dunn enough, and it's just like too little, too late when it comes to Dunn, playing wise, and it's unfortunate for Chris Dunn, but that's just kind of where the Hawks are right now.
Right, and Malik brought up that Nate said 9.5, and he said he thought the half would be done. I think the half is probably Onyeka from what we've seen. I think that's Nate's half. So yeah, that's just my opinion on that. Onyeka, let me see what he did in Indiana. I don't even see his name up here. Danny. But you guys know what he did against Phoenix, of course. Oh, okay. Against Indiana, 7 minutes, 3 points, 2 rebounds. So still, he didn't come up with the empty stats. And you guys know what he did against Phoenix with the 14 points, and I believe it was 7 rebounds, a couple powerful fourth quarter dunks and stuff. Really coming on. But yeah, I guess just moving on. What did you guys learn from this week? There were some very highs and a low with the Indiana loss, losing the one game that people thought was the gimme for them this week. What was your takeaway from this past week?
I think my biggest takeaway is just offensively, this team is they're scary. I mean, like they're just clicking on all the cylinders on the offensive end, and like, the thing with the Hawks is like it's like pick your poison, because when teams are playing the Hawks, they're doubling Trae Young. He's going through that screen and he see 2 guys on him, and what Trae Young is doing is he's trusting his teammates. When he's doubled, he's kicking it out to Bogey, and Bogey's hot and he's hitting 7 3-pointers, or they're getting Bogey off screen, off those pin downs and curls, and he's hitting them. And now you're focusing your attention on Bogey, and all of a sudden, now it's Gallinari, and he can kill you, and he's hitting, his 5 threes and post-ups. And you're focusing on him too much, and now it's Kevin Huerter, and he's killing you from 3. Or it's John Collins, and he's making plays at the rim and we're shooting the ball well, or it's Clint Capella. So it's like there's just so many guys on this team that can just kill you, and you're kind of at your mercy when you're defending this team, because like Trae Young can go off for 30, or he's dishing it off to all these shooters and divers at the rim, and it's nuts. I mean, you're at your mercy when you're defending the Hawks. Like the Hawks offensively, they're a load. And Phoenix and Portland and even Indiana, even though the Hawks lost that game, like the Hawks put up 126 on Indiana. So like offensively, like they are finally playing like we all thought that they would play at the beginning of the year, and it's just good to see.
Yeah, I think this was a good week for them. Honestly, if I would have looked at how the schedule was I before I even made my predictions, I really didn't even look at the other team's schedule. But I honestly feel like the Hawks kind of got lucky this week, because when you think about it, okay, and this is just not even from a fan perspective, it's just like looking at schedules. Like, okay, the Celtics played on Sunday, and then they had to go to Atlanta the next day. They played on the back-to-back. So, I mean, I would think that the Hawks would win that game because they didn't play the night before. So then they play a Phoenix Suns team that just came off an OT game the night before against who would have thought the Cavaliers. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, they even have a better chance of winning this game. Like, I didn't think they would win that game, but after I saw that they had played that back to back and they was OT, I was like, okay, the Hawks probably got a chance. And the Suns did play good most of that game, honestly. Like, I know KL said the Suns played good like the first 3 quarters. It was the fourth quarter that kind of just blew up for them. But they still put up 130 on them. So it was a good game. Now the Pacers game was kind of just made it strange because the Pacers and the Hawks were both coming off a back-to-back. I mean, we're just coming off a game the night before. And if y'all saw, the Pacers were going through a little rumbling, tumbling the night before with the assistant coach or whatnot. So I just thought that was a game where it was like, honestly, at that time, I should have just thought of it as a trap game because that's kind of what it felt like. Like, the Pacers were going through that, and then they also had players out. It was kind of like the Hawks could win by 20. They should win by 20, but it was like I don't know if you want to do that. Like it didn't feel right. And I feel like it's been a couple games like that. Like the Pistons game that they lost, that was a game where it was like, okay, they should blow these dudes out, but I think they were all coming off a back-to-back. The Hawks were coming off a back-to-back as well. They had just beat the Bucks that night before. So it was kind of, you don't really know. But, I mean, overall, this was a good week. Like, I feel like everybody showed up. They've done their thing. Offensively, like Red says, like, this team, it looks unstoppable. It's so many parts. Like, it's kind of hard to double trade at this point because it looks like he's grown so much. He knows what to do in certain situations. And I know I made a tweet early this week. I was like, his rookie season. I mean, we all know Trey could pass, but the things like it seems more calculated now. Like he's doing more calculated things to make the team better. And of course, his shots attempts may be going down and his points may be going down, but they're winning games. Like that's what you're supposed to be doing. So I think this has been a good weekend. Hopefully they finish strong.
Okay, so all right, getting back into it. Playoffs starting. Like we said, this is the final week of the regular season. As we are recording this, the Atlanta Hawks are. Hold on, let me pull up the exact standings. They are 5th in the East, and they are one game behind the New York Knickerbockers, who have swept the Hawks in the regular season. The Hawks are also, let me see, they're a half game ahead of the Miami Heat, and they are 1.5 games ahead of the Boston Celtics at number 7. Number 7 spot, 7 through 10, they are in the play-in tournament, and which means like if you just lose 2 games as a 7th seed, then you are out of the playoffs and you don't make the playoffs. So that is what, on the Western Conference side of things, if you've been kind of following at all with the NBA, the Lakers are currently 7th, and they would face the Warriors at 8. That's why people are saying the Lakers have a chance of missing the playoffs because, if Steph Curry gets hot for a game, then you're out of it. The Hawks, if they were to slip to 7 and Boston moves up, everybody else moves up, they would face Charlotte. So you talk about Charlotte team with a lot of young energy, and those guys have performed pretty well against the Hawks this year, led by LaMelo and PJ Washington and the jumping boy, Miles Bridges. I didn't mean to call him a boy, but yeah, that's just what. And then you face, you face the winner of the Wizards and the Pacers, and you're talking about, a Russell Westbrook, which I told you, True. If he gets hot one game, you don't want to see them jokers in the playoffs. Then you got the Wizards coming out in a 1-game situation, and you're facing the Wizards and Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, or you're facing the Pacers, who have a newfound confidence against you guys after LeVert and Sabonis just cooked you. So that's the playoff picture. My first question, do you think, because the Hawks are currently in 5th where they don't have home court advantage, do you think home court advantage matters in a year like this with COVID with limited attendance? First question.
I'm going to say no. I don't think it does. I'm going to say no. Like, I know I'm sure there's going to be a bit more fans into the arena, when the playoffs start. And I know the Hawks are going to have, then they say, was it 45% capacity or was it 50% capacity?
I think it was 50. It was 50, yep. And a fan section of 500 fans. Yeah. Excuse me, I believe vaccinated guys.
I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference considering there'll be a bit more fans, but I don't know if it'll be enough for it to make it a true home court advantage. So I think it'll be kind of similar to the bubble. That's kind of how I see it. So I don't think home court matters in doing this season or playoffs. Like I just don't.
Yeah, I don't think it really much matters either. But I mean, if we want to say it does matter, I mean, let's just look at how like the other teams in the playoffs, how much they have, how many fans they have in their arenas. Because I know last night the Blazers, they just got fans, and they were like excited. They came out of on the court like yay, like we finally got fans. So I mean, if it does, like I guess you would definitely have to look at like capacities and as far as like who they're playing or whatnot. But I mean, in a nutshell, I don't really think it matters like that.
Yeah, well, I would say one part, like this is one part of the season that I always refer back to, just because I think it encapsulate like the ceiling for the Hawks, performance wise, and then just also from a home court perspective of when that game against the Bucks, when Bogey and Lou went back and forth, hitting 6 consecutive threes in the fourth quarter to really separate themselves from Milwaukee and win that game. And Lou, comes in and he kind of closes the run with a crossover between his legs, goes to the rim, and then puts up a nice contested shot at the rim, and it goes in for whatever that was. So 6 consecutive threes. That's how many points? 18, and then 12 for 20 for the 20 straight point for the Hawks, which is ridiculous. Like with Quavo and everybody, like it sounded pretty loud in there. And I think that's as loud as it can get. So I kind of refer to that moment as what the Hawks ceiling is performance wise of
Right.
those guys getting hot from 3, and then also just the ceiling of how loud and how impactful the fans can get. Because I think after they hit a couple and Bogey does this and the fans start he looks at Quavo and Quavo's doing this right back at him. Like I think like that got them going. That was a part of the 6 consecutive threes with those guys gassing them up on the court side.
I think home court matters to an extent that I think like players, like when you play at home, you kind of know how the rims feel when you make shots. So I think it helps in that regard. Like, you have a good feel for the rims, how you shoot, how you make your layups, how you make your free throws. Like there's a rhythm, when it comes to basketball. So, like if Atlanta were to play the Knicks, like you're comfortable at home because you know how you rest, how you train, how you shoot. Whereas if you go to New York, you don't have a feel for how you train and how you make shoot and practice at Madison Square Garden. So I think it helps in that regard. But as far as like crowd noise, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really decipher it because it seemed like last year in the bubble, that's when we saw like the best offensive games ever. Like it seemed like random, like TJ Warren was going off, and it was like, oh, it's because they don't got no fans. And then I mean, you can credit to the Miami Heat, like they was just Duncan Robinson was unbelievable, Tyler Hero unbelievable.
Where's Tyler Hero been all season?
That's what I'm saying. like they literally call the Miami Heat the Bubble Boys now. Like they just because it seemed like all that success came from the bubble. But I mean, you don't want to discredit them. Like they had a good team all in all, but like just the offensive. But I mean, you look at it and it's like, okay, you see all these good like offensive performances in a space where it's like no fans and all you hear is crowd noise. Now you get kind of like a little bit of fans or 50% or 40% in in these arenas. Now it's like, what, is it making a difference or whatnot? Like, we really don't know. I haven't played basketball in a crowd full of people or whatnot, so I don't know how it affects them. So I don't know.
I can say it definitely affects them in a 20,000, packed, playoff atmosphere. It definitely does. It has to. Like, if you've been in a building at a playoff game, like
Yeah, your adrenaline
different.
just goes
It's
up.
different. Like it's
Your energy level.
like you hear off of like a layup. And it's like if you can feel that as a fan or as someone at the game, you definitely feel it on the court. So I definitely think the fans have an effect on the game when it's 20,000. But if it's like 5,000, 10,000 people in a 20,000 seat arena, I don't know if it's gonna. You know what I'm saying? Because, you had a lot of people at the All-Star game. And it still felt like the All-Star game was empty just watching it on TV. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on home court. And then let's go ahead and move on to, I guess, the playing tournament. I know Reg, but before we started recording, he was talking about he doesn't worry about the Hawks slipping that game and a half to 7 at all. Why is that, Reg?
Look at the schedule. I mean, they got the Wizards twice. I think they'll split. I actually think they're going to split the 2 games against the Wizards. Like, I don't think they're going to beat the Wizards twice because the Wizards are just playing so good and they're playing for something. So it's kind of hard to see the Hawks beat them twice. But after that, you have Houston and Orlando. So, like, and also they've been they've won, 7 in a row, 8 in a row at home now? So they're playing good at home. And the one thing that I've been impressed with under Nate McMillan, for the most part, is they've beaten the teams that they're supposed to beat. Like, I know the Indiana game was, a little bit of a setback in that regard, but, Indiana, kind of like the Wizards, are playing for something. And like Indiana, like, they have some talent. Like, we can talk about their, dysfunction with them not liking the coach and all that stuff, but like, Sabonis and LeVert and TJ McConnell, like, they got pieces and they can play. Whereas, Orlando and Houston, they're not playing for anything. So, and the Hawks are playing for something. So it's just hard for me.
KPJ playing for buckets.
Yeah. So, like, he's
trying to get him 100 before the hey, don't say KPJ trying to get he's trying to get 100 before the end of the season. Hey, who took that? Oh, Jason Tatum after 60. Joker, he had 60 points, man. About 8 players had 60 last year, bro. Like, stop the cap, man. Save this picture for 70. Devin had 72. You take the picture with the 72. You scored 60 points, man, and quadruple overtime. It was twin overtimes. You had 60 points. Sit down somewhere, bro.
Wow. Stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
But KPJ, you can't – wait, hold on. I say all this to say that you can't say the Rockets aren't playing for nothing because KPJ is playing for buckets. He's trying to get 100. You saw that when he scored 50. They ain't playing for nothing but pride, and this joker is going for 50 points. So he's going for something. Cleveland done cut him. He trying to prove a point that I belong in this league. They had this joker in the G League bubble. He playing for buckets. That's what he playing for. He playing for buckets.
But when he scored those 50, did Houston lose? Did they lose?
I have to look that up.
I think they lost. I think they still lost. No, they beat Milwaukee. They beat Milwaukee. Yeah, they beat Milwaukee. Boy, it was so funny because in the I don't know if y'all saw the video. I forgot who was recording. It was probably Kenyon Martin Jr. He was recording on IG. And
Drew.
In the background, it was like, boy, did you see Drew out there? I had him sliding. I was there.
And of course, Drew is Drew Holiday, the Milwaukee Bucks guard. The reason why that's a big deal is because Drew Holiday is widely regarded as the best defensive guard in the league. If it's not him, then Ben Simmons. That's why it's such a big deal. Continue.
Yeah. But back to my point, like, the Hawks should go 3-1 at least over these next 4 games.
Three. I honestly think if they go 3-1, 3-1 should put them in the 4th spot. Because as we look now, the Knicks, they have the Knicks in the 4th. Knicks are 4, Hawks are 5, Heat are 6, Celtics are 7. So then you have to look at the schedules. So the Knicks have to play the Clippers, the Lakers, and they have to play. Dang, who else they got to play?
Spurs.
Spurs. They got to play the Spurs. I don't think they'll beat the Lakers. I don't think they'll beat the Clippers. The Lakers, the Spurs is a toss up, honestly, because the Spurs.
I think they can beat the Lakers. The Knicks.
Yeah, I think they'll beat the Lakers. I think they'll beat. Oh, I mean, yeah, it'll be a toss up because the way the Lakers have been playing, you really don't know. But just this West Coast trip has been really bad for the Knicks. So I mean, when you look at them getting blown up by the Nuggets, and then the Suns, it's like, okay, they got to come straight. They got to come correct. I don't think they got it in them. I don't think they'll beat the Clippers. I don't think they'll beat the Lakers. And I said it'll be a toss up against the Spurs. I think that's the rest of their games for the season. So then you got the Hawks.
They got
one more?
I think they have a couple more after the Spurs game. I think they have I've looked at their schedule.
But so then you got the Hawks. They got the Wizards twice.
Hornets and Celtics.
So they got the Celtics. We don't know about the Celtics. Really confusing me right now. But in the Hornets have been playing competitive as well. But I think they'll beat the Hornets. So
Malik, but before you go too far and I forget, the Spurs are 10th in the West. So the Spurs will be playing for something.
So the Spurs are playing. Okay, so the Spurs are playing for something. So they'll come out, with some extra energy. So then yeah, go ahead, Rich.
The Knicks have they've shocked me so much this whole year. Like personally for me, and I know this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but Tom Thibodeau's my coach of the year. Like I thought the Knicks before the year would be the worst team in the league, and if you would have told me that Julius Randle would shoot 3-pointers like Steph Curry and that he would dominate whatever team he plays against and he will be an all-NBA guy, I would have told you that you were crazy. But he's been great, and that team is playing high-level defense. And it's easy to think that they're gonna that they could fall off a cliff, and they might. Who knows? But I just think I think they're gonna lose to the Clippers personally, but I feel like they're gonna get 2 or 3 of these games coming up. I really, really, really do, because that's just kind of how they've been all year under Tibbs. So I'm not gonna just assume that Atlanta's just gonna automatically be the 4th seed, because what the Knicks have shown us is they just find a way to chip away and do whatever is needed. That's all.
So if let's just say the Knicks drop 2 games in those 5 games that they play, and the Hawks went out, do the Hawks get the 4th seed? I think because they're half a game behind now, so I feel like if the Hawks went out,
so the Hawks go, let's say 3-1, which would put them at 40-32.
4-32.
If the Knicks win 2 games, then they'll have 39 wins.
So the Knicks play they got the Clippers.
They got the Clippers, the Lakers. I'm going to pencil those 2 in as L's. I don't know about the Spurs.
I think they win 3 out of those 2. I think when it's all said and done, I think both the Hawks and the Knicks will be 40-32.
So the Knicks get the 4th seed.
So the Knicks get the 4th seed.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. I think they lose to the Clippers. I think they'll beat the Lakers. I think they'll beat the Spurs, and then they'll lose 1 or 2 of those games to the Hornets and Celtics.
Okay, so now you have to look at the Heat schedule, because they could also surpass the Hawks too, because I think they're half a game behind the Hawks.
Yeah.
So, but I think they have, maybe out of those 4 teams, they have the hardest schedule coming up, supposedly. They got the Celtics twice. They got the Bucks. Then they got, I think they play the Sixers as well. So they're playing they're playing 2 of the top teams in the East, and then they're playing the Celtics, which I think those 2 games they could probably split those.
Right.
but he have a chance to get that 5th seed. They have a good chance, but the way they've been real inconsistent this season as well. So you really don't know. But I think out of those 4 games that the Heat play, I think they'll win 1.
They play 5. They play 5.
They play 5. My bad. So they play the. I think they'll beat the Celtics once. Possibly they'll beat the Pistons. I don't know. I don't think they'll beat the Bucks.
I think what it's really going to come down to is whether the Sixers and Bucks start resting players.
That's big too, right? Exactly. But are the Bucks? Do the Bucks have a chance of even getting the 2nd seed? Or
I think they're the 2nd seed now. I think they're tied with Milwaukee. They are.
Oh shoot, they are. So I feel like they'll be. Well, I mean, depending on who they want to play, but I don't know if teams do that anymore. But I feel like they'll be playing for that 2nd seed. So they might come out and not rest players. It really is a toss-up. But the Sixers, it seems like the Sixers have it locked up. So they may rest players.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We have to question whether teams are going to compete at the end.
Right.
Like, I don't know if they're going to care about this game. It's just
right.
Yeah.
And then I guess the Celtics. Let's look at them. I think it's
they're a half a game behind.
They're a game and a half behind the Hawks. A game and a half. So they have 5 games as well. So Knicks are the Miami Heat and the Celtics all have 5 games left. The Hawks only have 4 games left. So if the Hawks win out, then they will have 41 wins. Yeah, 41, I believe. Because they have, 37? Okay, 37. Cool. So the best the Hawks can do is 41 wins. But here's the Celtics. The Heat, as we already said, Heat again, 2 Heat games. Cleveland, Minnesota, and then New York.
The Celtics go both ways. Like I've given up on just figuring out the Celtics. Like I think, honestly, they can win all 5 of those games, and they could lose all 5 of those games. Even the Cleveland, I could see them losing. Like they're just so inconsistent to me. Like the Bulls yesterday just smacked them around. So I don't. Boston is just something ain't right with that team. Honestly, like you can just watch them play, and it's up and down. Like last week against San Antonio, they're down 30 points, and then Jason Tatum scores 60, and you thinking, okay, can the Celtics, maybe this is the time the Celtics get their act together and they start rallying around and gather some momentum. And then all of a sudden they drop games again. They lose to Portland, and then last night they lose to the Bulls. So the Celtics are so unpredictable to me that I don't know. I don't know what to expect from them down the stretch.
They don't want to see the Hawks don't want to see the Celtics in the playoffs, though.
That's the hill he's gonna die on. That's the hill he is chose to die on. But man, and then the Hornets have no chance. Hawks are
they're playing team.
No chance. Yeah, it's over with. Sorry, LaMelo. All right. So where are we getting to? Where are we getting to now? I guess just moving on to actual playoff predictions as of 1 week before the playoffs start. Knicks, home court versus the Hawks. Who do you have in this series, and how many games?
I'm gonna assume that DeAndre Hunter is 80% and that he'll play 20-ish minutes. So I'm going to say Hawks in 6 over the Knicks. I'm going to give the Knicks a couple of games just due to, inexperience and for the Hawks. And, I still kind of worry about whether the Hawks can have an answer for Julius Randle, because Julius Randle has just dominated the Hawks. Like, the Hawks just don't have a guy that can guard that guy. So I worry about that matchup with Julius Randle, but like at the end of the day, like the Hawks just have more talent from top to bottom than the Knicks do. And I feel like that's going to win out at the end of the day. Even though the Knicks play hard and they play tough and they'll defend, and I do think they'll make it a bit tough on Trey at times, I still think the Hawks are just top to bottom. They're just better. I mean, they're more talented and they're better, and I just think that'll win out at the end of the day. So I'm going to say Hawks and 6 over the Knicks.
Dang, Reggie, you really let me down. You're supposed to say Hawks in 4. We need the views.
Hey, shout out to Brandon.
Hey, shout out to Brandon. But I think I said Hawks in 6 last week. I'm gonna go Hawks in 6 again. Like you said, Reggie. He ain't Luka. All right, that's gonna get the views right there. All right, cool. So yeah, I just think from top to bottom, like if you just look at the Knicks team and the Hawks team, I genuinely think the Hawks just have a better team. And I think what really sets them apart is the coaching. And I feel like that's the reason the Hawks lost those 2 games. The first at the beginning of the season, as I always say, because of LP. And
sadly.
And then they oh man, I forgot. Oh man, I'm sorry, Reg. I didn't know if I
it's okay.
Wait, hold on. Let him finish. Let him finish. He said, sadly what? Sadly what, Reg? Go ahead and finish.
I was wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, he has admitted it.
We got the title. We got the Twitter clip. And we got it in 4K. He admitted it, y'all. After all season, Hawks Twitter. This is a monumental moment in the season for Hawks Twitter. If y'all better watch it. Hey, if you ain't watched one episode yet, you need to start watching now.
Hey, you need to cut the snippet. That's the snippet right here.
I need the timestamps right here. I need the timestamps. Need that.
No, but look, man. Look, I'm not gonna. I still say that like not all of the like. I still think the Hawks could have won a few of those games that they lost under Lloyd Pierce, but when you're winning at the level that the Hawks have won under Nate McMillan, like it's clear that like Lloyd Pierce had some like trouble and issues with the team. And like, it is what it is. Like it didn't work out. I personally underestimated some of the issues that I think Lloyd Pierce was causing with the team. And like they're better under Nate McMillan, and it's obvious. So I was wrong.
And I think, Reg, the thing is with it is like you couldn't really tell at first because Bogey did come back his first game back. So It's like, okay, it's like, well, Nate is dealing with more players. And then when the Hawks started having that same injury bug that came around the team, they were playing with half a leg and they were still finding ways to win. It was like, okay, this is the difference between Pierce and McMillan is, you have kind of fair evidence along, a couple weeks and a couple months of, guys with injury issues and, you're playing with half the lineup and you still find a way to put it together.
And I'm going to give Nate McMillan credit for 2 things. One, his use of Bogey. Because even when Bogey was early in the year, when he was playing and healthy, the first like 8 or so games, he was basically used as a spot-up shooter. Like you wasn't seeing Lloyd Pierce, having Bogey run off screens and pin downs and, having them involved with pick and rolls and things like that. Like under Nate McMillan, like they're using Bogey the way we envision him being used. Like they're,
the way he was using Sack.
Yeah. So like, and I think that's been a huge boom for why the Hawks offense is so dynamic. So like you got to give Nate McMillan credit for that. And also I'm also going to give Nate McMillan credit for, I don't know if you guys have looked at the Hawks stats, but here's a stat for you guys. Under Lloyd Pierce, the Hawks ranking in pace was 16th, middle of the pack. And the first 2 years under Lloyd Pierce, the Hawks ranked in pace was basically like top 5 in the league. So the Hawks were playing fast under Lloyd Pierce. Under Nate McMillan, since March 1st to now, they're 26th. So they're playing slower, which means you're not seeing, the Hawks take these you're not seeing the Hawks, pass once and then Kevin Huerter or Cam Reddish or whoever take a quick three. Now they're being patient. They're swinging the ball. They're finding the best shot instead of the first quick shot, and I think that's made a difference for this team.
Shout out to Gallo.
Yeah, and Gallo, I think it's made a difference for the team, and it's made a difference for them in fourth quarters because they're not rushed all the time. They're not rushed, whereas under Lloyd Pierce, when you watch the Hawks in fourth quarters under Lloyd Pierce, you just felt like they were panicky and they're rushed and they're just trying to find the quick shot, and they were too panicky, and that's no longer the case no more. So I'm gonna give Nate McMillan his flowers. Like, he's done a hell of a job.
Right. And I guess kind of going back to the main thing of what we were talking about, my prediction last time with B, I said Hawks in 5. Because B kind of gassed me up. I ain't going to lie. His energy kind of gassed me up. After coming down, like I said, these last couple of weeks and seeing the Hawks like, okay, this is what happens when shots aren't always falling just like, back to back. Because it's not going to be every night where all the shots are falling. This team reminds me a lot of not all the way, but kind of like the Magic in the early 2010s with Hedo and when they were lighting up the Hawks, when all them jokers could shoot, Jason Richardson, and they were just all game. And it's like, well, what happens when the shot slows up? And we saw what eventually happened when the shot slowed up for them. They kind of got stuck. So, it's like with that, when that happens to the Hawks, you kind of have to lean a little more defensively. And when you kind of just depend so much on Clint Capella defensively, what happens when Clint gets hurt? What happens when Clint hurts his back again and, he's playing out there gingerly, not 100% Clint Capella. And, Onyeka goes out there and he's getting his groove, but he's still not what you really want on the front lines in the playoff game right now, in this situation. Maybe against the Knicks, just because the Knicks don't have, they're just as inexperienced as the Hawks when it comes to the playoffs. But yeah, just in general. So I'll say just based off of the fact that the Hawks aren't immortal or anything, they're kind of like what we thought they would be, a 4th seed, a 5th seed. I'm going to go 6 games. Hawks in 6 games instead of 5 games. I'm going to give the Knicks a little more respect. 6 games for the Hawks. Oh, okay. So, excuse me. Clear my throat. Since we have all have the Hawks beating the Knicks in the first round. Second round, as we said, it kind of looks like Philly is in the driver's seat for that number 1 seed. So here we go again. Philly versus Atlanta in the second round. Who do you guys have and how many games?
That's a tough one. I'm going to say Philly's going to win, but I'm going to say Philly.
Not the broom.
Oh, you got the broom?
Oh, no, he did it. No, he did it. No, he did it.
Oh,
No, not the Sandman music. Not the Sandman music.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
You picking Sweet?
Oh no! Oh man!
The Hawks.
Hey,
I
did
personally
you
believe
watch
the
that
Hawks
last
are.
game, Rage, with the Philly?
I know,
When them jokers when Dwight
but I
Howard,
know.
I'm like, dang, this look like 2012 Dwight Howard. Where this joker been? He grabbing the backboard when he grabbing the ball. He not even blocking the ball. He grabbing it in midair and coming down with it. And like, let's get back on offense, y'all. He got that Ted Cooper. He fired up now because Ted done left him. So he fired up from that. He got a prove a point to Shaq. Shaq, he done finally won his ring, and he crying on Instagram Live and Shaq mocking it. He mad about that. He want to prove he can win another ring.
Wow, got the broom out. But I'm gonna say Philly in 5. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna give the Hawks a win. I'm gonna say it wouldn't surprise, like, if DeAndre Hunter was like peak DeAndre Hunter, I could actually see it going like 6 or 7, but it's just hard to gauge where DeAndre Hunter is. So I'm gonna say if it got to that point, I would say Philly in 5 games.
The Hawks showed me nothing when they played the Sixers 2 weeks ago. They didn't show me, like, usually, it's a game where it's like, they show you that, okay, they can at least beat this team. They showed me nothing.
Thibault going off on them jokers, and then you got the Can
I play devil's advocate?
Yeah,
got
please.
3 more All-Stars.
Philly at home is different than Philly on the road. Like, when they're at home, they're like, and I know this home court advantage stuff, like, crowd noise. I know we talked about that, but like, when it comes to the Sixers at home, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just different with them when they play in their arena. Like, they just feel more confident and more juiced up. And like the Hawks, they're too when they played at Philly, like, they just got smacked. But at home, and I know Philly didn't have their guys early in the year, but like, they did win that game earlier in the year against Philly when they were at State Farm. So like,
that don't count.
I know though. Well,
they ain't had nobody but Embiid and
I know,
a prayer.
I know, but I'll give the Hawks a game.
It's like that's like us saying, like, the Knicks, like, when we go back to the Knicks, and it's like, well, the Knicks swept them in the regular season, and then you go to the situational thing, and it's like, well, they had this coach blow the lead, and then the second one they were in the game, and then the third one they were in the game until Trey got hurt. So it's just that perspective. But yeah, continue. Is
I got Hawks in 4. That's it. That's all I got to say. I mean Sixers in 4. My bad. Philly in 4. That's it. Sweet. That's.
I could see the Hawks winning 2 games, but I guess to play it safe, I'm gonna say 1 game. I'm gonna say 5 games, because you got to think, like, it goes back to that offensive thing. It's literally like, if Bogey gets 30, Lou gets 30, Trey gets 30, and John gets 20, and Capella gets 15 and 14 rebounds, I can't see the Hawks losing that. You know what I'm saying? I can't see the Hawks losing that game. Like, I just called off about 185 points right there with them 5 players.
That's a perfect world, though.
Score 185 points in a game. I can see them winning off that.
And the thing with Philadelphia is, like, they're like the Knicks on steroids. Like, they're so good defensively, like, and be protecting the rim. You got Ben Simmons, who can, like, cover ground and guard point guards and wings and bigs. Like, he can just guard every position. And you have Danny Green, who can guard people. And you have, Tobias Harris is not that much of a defender, but, like, he tries hard, and he can get buckets on the other end. And then you have Maurice Thibault. Like, they got so much length on the defensive end of the floor. And, like, offensively, like, they're just physical and big. And, like, it just seems to me that the Hawks have issues against those type of teams. And I think Philly is they're just a physical big team. And on top of that, they're more experienced. Like that, like in that type of matchup, like you can see Philly's experience kind of just being the overriding like factor over Atlanta in that series.
And look, Reg, this is a series where you phone a friend. Hello, LP. Hey, if Lloyd Pierce lost 80 games, it was gonna be 2 games he was gonna win. They was gonna be against the Philadelphia 76ers. So you know what I'm saying? So that's when you wish you had LP, but LP gonna lose you. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that to LP. I'm not gonna, he's a great man.
He's gonna lose you
man.
the first round, so he's not gonna get to
a great basketball mind. You know, great experience, player development, developed the great Steph Curry, Joel Embiid. You heard the stories. Worked with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James during the lockout. He's a great man. But He gonna, if he beat nobody else, he gonna beat the Philadelphia 76ers. So if I'm the Hawks, hey, I'm sorry, you know what I'm saying? How the kids, how the newborn. Okay, all right. Well, look, you know, you got the sauce. You got the sauce because that's the only chance you're gonna have of getting 2 games. Or getting 2-3 games against Philly. So that's just my piece on it. And then, you know, also when you're talking about Philly, you're talking about experience, I think them jokers, man, they here every year. I was just watching randomly. I don't know how I came across it, but I watched it. Yesterday, the full practice interview from Allen Iverson in 2002. And the full thing, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, it's 33 minutes. And he's just talking about how frustrated he was with having his name in trade rumors, because it's like,
I remember.
I just won MVP. I'm the best player in the world in the best league in the world. So if you make a trade, you make it to make your team better, right? And then they're like, yeah. It's like, how you gonna get any better than the best player in the league? You know, so he's just frustrated on that. With Embiid now in the MVP race, and it's looking like it's gonna go to Jokic. But with Embiid in the MVP race and having Ben Simmons be the All-Star he is, and then having Tobias Harris being the all-star that he believes he should be, and then having Seth Curry, Danny Green, Thibault, you know, and Dwight coming off the bench. Like, you know, to have all those weapons, those guys, they hear it every season. Every time Embiid loses, he lost on a little boop, 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 Kawhi, boom, and cries, you know, in the camera. You know, like, those guys, they hear it every year. Embiid and Simmons don't like each other. They can't do it. Seth, it will never be Steph. Like, they hear all these things all the time. Maybe not the last point. I just made that up. But they want to – if you want to prove a point in the playoffs, same thing with Milwaukee. We don't believe anything with Milwaukee until we see it in the playoffs. Giannis can't win. Bud can't win in the playoffs. So, like, those 2 teams are 2 teams that have heard this narrative for the past 3-4 seasons. So Milwaukee, I think just off of that, go ahead.
Milwaukee more so than Philly, I think. Maybe it's because Philly. Maybe because Milwaukee went to the conference finals more. But like, I feel like with Milwaukee, like there's been more like chitter chatter with them more so than Philly.
But with Philly, the Embiid Simmons thing not working out, and this
that's
time
true.
I hear that. Excuse me.
That's true.
Literally hear that after every loss. Every Philly loss you hear. Embiid and Simmons, they don't go together because both of them drive and they go to the paint. You know, I hear that literally every loss for the past 3 seasons. And it started kind of like with Chuck.
I think he heard it less this season, but that has been that has definitely been like a talking point.
So that's
winning cares all.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you get into the playoffs, you get a chance to kind of shut all that up. And you know, that second round, third round, as you were alluding to earlier, with both of those teams, that's kind of been their Achilles. They haven't been able to get over that hump. So this is the opportunity. You know, it's your first chance. You got back to the spot. All right, you did what you're supposed to do, first seed, second seed, top 3 seeds. Everybody expected y'all to be that. Now it's y'all time to go out and really do what, you know, people said you couldn't do. This is your chance. If not, they're going to blow up the team. You're going to get traded. Someone's going to get traded. You're going to have to move. Nobody wants to move, especially if you're a franchise player. You got comfortable in the city. You fell in love with the fans. You know, you had highs and lows with them. You don't want to move. You don't want to leave. So that's all I'm saying is Philly's going to have that hunger in them, and I think that's going to fuel them ultimately over the Hawks or whoever their second round opponent is going to be.
I agree. I agree.
Malik, you had anything?
Nah, that's it. That's it. I think we I mean after that Sixers loss, that we Cancun.
Cancun on 3, Cancun on me. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Hey, but look, that's a good season though. That's a good season though for the Hawks. That's about what we expected. That's about what we expected.
The Hawks just getting into the playoffs is a good year. Like even if they lose in the first round, if they lose to the Knicks, it'd be a little hurtful. But like Trae Young needs to be in the playoffs, not just for excitement, just for him to just experience success and failure.
Because you know who's been in the playoffs? Talk about views. Luka Doncic.
Yeah, he's been in it. Yeah, definitely.
I had to make sure I said his name for that.
But not just Trey, but
for the views.
John Collins and DeAndre Hunter and Bogey, like all of these guys, they need to be in the playoffs.
I heard that, and I think it's just good to just live up to the expectation. You know, not underachieve, because going into last year, it was like, oh, can this team make the playoffs? And they were, heck no, nowhere near. So, you know, like the fact that they lived up to that expectation this year, and not just making the playoffs, because last year there was like, oh, they can contend for the AFC. This year it was like they should be a top 4 team, top 5 team in the East, and they were. So I think that's a positive. But for the people who have the Hawks going to the finals and, you know, putting your money in on that, I would say save your money. Save
it, guys.
Save your money. Doge, whatever they're saying, Doge coin to the moon, whatever the stock that people are talking
bet on the Hawks being in the finals in 2023.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I think we got a new title.
We got a new title.
But yeah, I think it's a good season. Malik, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Nah, I'm good. This was a good episode.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that, Reg, your perspective on everything. And yeah, everybody go around, give your socials.
Reggie's World. REGGIES_WORLD.
Find me @_Malik ATL on Twitter.
Man, you already know, man. Rashad, you can follow me on Twitter at Kennedy and Airy. Bears backcourt in the sanctuary. Yeah. Have a good week.
And if they come out clean.